Welcome, everyone. Finally, another edition of the After Hours podcast. I'm Andy Lindahl, flying solo again. Just checking in with you guys, and I want to let you know this podcast isn't going anywhere. Got a few things to say tonight. Got a few Bronco insights for you. A few things to handle here on the podcast, but wanted to get one out there. I am, first and foremost, I'm sorry to everyone that's been a faithful follower of the podcast. A lot of you have downloaded it, and I appreciate that. And it's not, like I said, it's not going to go anywhere, but I've had kind of a crazy last couple of weeks since the last recording. I've been trying to connect with Jason Hirsch in particular to get you some good Rockies talk and kind of evaluate things, but Hershey's been pretty busy with what he's got going on with his fast arm care pitching school, so it hasn't been easy to sync our schedules up. For those that don't know, and he's going to be one of the guys they do get on the podcast, I did accept a job with Altitude Radio late in May. I really couldn't talk in earnest with anybody till my 90-day no-compete ended. It did finally end in late May. Well, it was before Memorial Day that my no-compete ended, and for those that don't know, that's a standard thing in radio. And for me, at least around my building, 90 days are pretty standard. As I found out through this unemployment process, businesses don't necessarily, well, the radio stations, I should say, don't necessarily love the 90-day length of waiting to try to get a new show on the air. And Nate Kreckman had been without a partner for a long time, so I got really lucky that not only Nate, but the Altitude management, Dave Tepper, heading that up in general, was willing to wait long enough, I guess, to talk to me. I don't know how else to put that. I'm sure in a perfect world they would have found their pairing a little bit earlier and not waited to talk to me, but ultimately it worked out to where they didn't find the right fit, and when my 90-day no-compete was up, they were still looking for something. So we finally got a chance to talk about some things, decide, was it going to work? Was the money going to work? It wasn't the easiest of things. I had to wait and see how they were going to come. Unfortunately, in radio, sometimes you get promised one thing and given another in writing. So we had some good initial discussions late in May, and then really, they weren't fooling around, which was awesome. So bottom line is I'm glad to be back to work. I'm glad to have my Monday through Fridays together again. After doing some shadowing, I decided I'd also teach at the Colorado Media School. That was something that I was kind of dabbling with in May. So June's been kind of weird. I'm normally, and for those of you that listen to me on the radio probably know, I used to take a lot of June and July off. I had accrued 4 weeks of vacation over at iHeart, and so I would often take 2 weeks, end of June, early July. My birthday is July 4th. I used to take my birthday off anyway, whether to go play in the Vail Lacrosse Shootout, which happens at that time, or just hang out with the kids and enjoy some summer. And then I'd take another week before training camp would start. So I'm kind of accustomed to having some time off after 20 years accruing that sort of vacation time over at iHeart. And so now it's kind of weird because June has been actually the start of something. And, I'm the new guy, so I don't really have vacation anywhere anymore. But anyway, just excited to get back to work. Excited to be doing the afternoon slot. For those of you that want to listen to me, and hopefully it's a lot of you, it's 92.5 FM in the Denver area. They do have an Altitude Sports Radio app, but what I'm finding out, if you really want to help and support me, as so many of you have, you'll do me a favor, and whenever you can, you'll actually listen on the radio. What I found out through my experience at iHeart, which I can talk a little bit more about, although I don't know, everybody keeps waiting for me to come out with some slanderous speech against those that let me go. It just didn't work out there, and I just have a lot of friends there and a lot of great memories, and I'm not going to sully that. Sure, there were some things that went down not the way I would have liked that, but who wouldn't feel that way after getting let go from any job? Like I said, I like to be honest with myself, and ultimately they had every right to do what they did because we just weren't getting the numbers, which brings me back to, if you really want to help me in my newest radio venture, you will just listen on the air, because as much as the online stuff is popular, and I still love you listening online and appreciate you listening however you can, ultimately listening on the actual radio station is what helps me out from a rating standpoint. There isn't a way that you'd think it wouldn't be this way, but right now we just don't, the online stuff just doesn't factor in the way you'd like it to. A lot of you listen from out of town, so I still appreciate you listening, and I appreciate all of you. one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast was, I felt like you guys needed a new episode for those that care about it. But more importantly, I want to thank a lot of you, because a lot of you listening, whether you realize it or not, I heard from so many different people from so many different forms of social media, whether you reached out to me on Facebook or you reached out to me on Twitter, or a lot of you have sent me messages over LinkedIn, a couple on Instagram. So I just want you all to know that you guys acting like you missed me is what kept me in this business. I was going to say some of this on the radio show, but there just hasn't been a time. We kind of get to business on the radio show. I guess I will say quickly before I finish my thought, my thank you to all of you. I like what we do. We get right into it. It's going to be a lot of Broncos when Broncos is appropriate. But it's probably going to take some adjustment for those of you that are more used to me driving the car and things being a little bit laid back. But I do enjoy what we're doing. So I hope if you're not used to how we do things at 92.5, where we're jumping through a lot of topics and we're kind of moving at a fast pace, give it some time. I hope it'll grow on you if it was a surprise to you. I've heard from a lot of people they prefer it better. So, and I kind of like how we jump around, and I've heard from a lot of people they're happy to hear me talking everything again, not just heavy Broncos. So, anyway, I look forward to interacting with you guys, period, on 92.5 Altitude Sports Radio, home of the Avs and Nuggets. If you're not in town, you're not familiar with it, there's always going to be that element of talk, but we talk everything. But we're going to talk plenty of Broncos come football season. But, for me, it's kind of nice to not talk just Broncos. I love the Broncos. Anybody that's been around or listen to my work knows that, but it did get, the one little piece of dirty laundry, if it's even that, it just got a little hard to be all Broncos all the time. I think for those of you that knew how I defaulted to my humor, that was because I just needed a break from talking constantly for 3 hours a day about the Broncos, and I love them. And, would jump back on that broadcast crew if invited again for sure, but just, the truth be told, it's hard to come up with Bronco content every single day of the year. And frankly, especially this time of year is when we had a rough time last year trying to figure out what it was we were going to talk about when the team was on break. You're going through a month. That's where we started doing things and we got by. And I'm still proud of what Tyler and I put together, and James. Don't want to forget James, Tyler, and I. Still proud of that product. Always will be. I think we did, some pioneering type work. Because we literally weren't allowed to talk about anything else. So I'm still proud of it. I would still do a show with those two in a heartbeat. When it comes to dirty laundry, there never was any with Tyler and James, and I'm going to miss them, but I'm very excited to have my new partner, Nate Kreckman, and my new producer, Mark Springer. They're really good guys, and I think you'll hopefully love the show. But again, to get back to all of you out there, and this, I've got some sports insights I want to share too, but it's important that all of you know, and I could name a bunch of your Twitter handles off in particular because that seems to be how I know a lot of you. Some I know by name, but I don't want to miss anybody, so I'm not going to do that. But just know it's all of you out there kept me in radio. Truth be told, I was really close to joining the insurance world or trying to become a salesman or just do something else with my life. The money in radio, it's kind of crazy. And so I had started to make a pretty nice living, and what I was making, wasn't sure I was going to be able to get back. It's going to take me, obviously, 2 jobs to do that, but luckily I'm able to do it. But for that reason alone, I started thinking, well, maybe it's just time to do something better financially so that my family can keep their home and all the kind of stuff you go through that you worry about with a job change. But ultimately, you guys telling me that you missed me, you guys telling me that you appreciated me, you guys telling me that you enjoyed me on the radio, that had a huge effect on me deciding to really find a job because I wasn't sure if anybody would miss me. When we were bartending, one of the sad lessons that I learned, I had a lot of regulars that I loved talking to in the bar. But ultimately, one day, I don't know what it was. I guess, they started a store. I bartended at a Bennigan's. One of the stores closed down. Another store, that store that closed down, their regulars started coming down to our place. And I was off Hamden and Wadsworth at the time. And so I always thought, if I left, these people are going to miss me. When I leave, this restaurant's really going to really going to learn a lesson, because these people, the good people that used to come in and be my regulars, they're not going to want anybody else serving them the drinks. And what I sadly just kind of learned was I was just the guy pouring the liquor for a lot of them. And now I think some did miss me, and ultimately there was some attachment there, but I think for the most part, this particular group of regulars, as long as you would comp a drink here and there for them and gave them a decent pour and offered them some decent conversation, I don't know that they really cared who was serving the drinks. And if there was an attractive bartender, female bartenders in particular, all the better for them. So I always thought that maybe people would feel as long as somebody was talking Broncos with them, they wouldn't care who was talking Broncos. But a lot of you made me feel like you missed talking Broncos with me. So thank you. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It's a crapshoot when you get into radio. Are you going to be liked? I get plenty of nasty texts from people. One guy already has told me he's sorry that I woke up, basically told me he wished I would have died, halfway through my work week on the text line, and that's what we endure. Nate gets his fair share of crap. There's people that are happy with me, people that are happy with Nate, and vice versa. And we hear from both sides regularly, and there's just these faceless texts, and both of us put up with quite hateful things being said to us, frankly, on the text line. And it never bothers me because of all of you that, whether you've listened to the podcast, you've reached out to me over the radio, via Twitter, I should say, whatever it may be, Twitter, Facebook. I just want you to know I really do appreciate all of you. And this career of mine in radio is going to go on thanks to what you guys have done and how you've made me feel. And hopefully there's more entertaining radio to come. Like I said, I hope you love the new show, and I can't wait to get back to talking Broncos in full when we get to the fall. But it just is important to me that I take at least this chance to let all of you know how important you are. And I bet I'm not the only media personality that feels that way about you guys. It really does mean something to those of us that aren't the former athletes, that you value us for whatever the reason is. And whether it's me or DMAC or Nate or, I could go on and on and on. Ryan Edwards, Zach By, Mike Evans, Vic Lombardi, Mark Mosier, Brett Kane. We all just appreciate the fact that you guys give a damn at all about what we say, whether you hear it enough or not. So thank you. Because I am back to doing what I love. And you guys gave me the push to make sure I explored all options before I got out of it. Because believe me, I want you all to know how close I was to just not doing this anymore. Bobby Pesavento, the old CU quarterback who I've become friends with, he had a really nice option for me out there. Would have been hard. It would have been totally different. And ultimately, I'm happy with my decision more than you know. But thank you to all of you that have been the support system. And even a lot of you during this time that have reached out to me just telling me to keep my head up. I have a new appreciation for the unemployed and what you go through. And for those that have reached out to me that have gone through the same stuff, man, I hope you find what you're looking for next. For as much as they tell us as the economy is good, and I don't believe the economy is bad, I certainly heard a lot of stories of people. It's taken people 3-4 months to find work, 5 months to find work. Now, eventually, I think what's different than, say, maybe the mid-2000s is people are finding it, but it's a scary process, and I certainly have great empathy for everybody that is just fearful of trying to keep life on track, especially if you got people depending on you, little ones in particular. So there you have it. There's my thank you. We'll get into more just normal podcast content, but you guys mean the world to me. I hope you know that. We don't even read as many texts or tweets as I'd like to sometimes, but just know I'm still seeing them all. If you guys text me, I'm still reading the text line. There's been times where I've been encouraged not to because of just the venomous crap that you get tweeted at, again, from the faceless trolls that just start, or, whatever they're doing it for. One guy texted me hate for 45 straight minutes the Tuesday after we got going. And, those are the days where you just wonder, do you really want to give yourself so much public access? But again, you guys are awesome. So thank you. I am going to fit in, like I said, some content. We're going to be getting, I keep talking to Jason Hirsch. I keep talking to Mark Stout. I don't want you to think that these are things that are gone. I'm still going to try to get these guests, get you the great stories that you want, and keep doing the things that make this podcast hopefully worth your time listening to. I also want to hear from you at Andy_Lindahl, Lindahl, if you don't know how to spell my name. I'm going to have to try to make my name a bigger brand than I used to. I used to love having it as Andy KOA Sports because I just thought it was easier. But anyway, Andy_Lindahl is how you get a hold of me. That's pretty much, I've got a Facebook page, Andy Lindahl. I've got, the Instagram, Andy Lindahl. Any of those, get at me. Let me know what you want to hear. Do you want to, I wanted to try to get Daniel Schlereth back on. He's actually pitching in the minors, so good for him. Not sure Stink's bosses would love it if he came on again, but we'll see. If there's ever a window, we'll take it. Like I said, Nate will come on so you can get to know Nate a little bit. I want to do that if we can and let me lead the discussion, which ultimately I may start doing on the show a little bit more too. We're both what they call drivers in this industry, so I may start driving some of me and Nate's show as well. You let me know. Let me know who you want to hear. Do you want to hear from some of the bands again? Would you be okay with that like you used to do on my KOA show if you go that far back? Obviously, I want to try to get some of the Bronco players on, but getting them to do 30 minutes can be tough. I might record 10 or 15 with Chris, but we'll wait and see ultimately. And I'm going to get Whiskey Rob on it. There's a guy named McShann Walker who runs Elkins Whiskey. My friend Crystal down in the Springs, she does a great job with her wine stuff, and she's going to try to put me in touch with the 291 folks. Bottom line is there's a few folks that I want to get on that I think we can have some fun with. There's, the bourbon culture here in Colorado. I don't ever encourage over drinking, and obviously I'll give you the line. If you think you have a problem, please reach out, get some help. But if you can handle it and sample it in the proper portions, some great bourbon to be had here in Colorado from 10th Mountain and Vail. To my buddies at Stranahan's in Denver, and Whiskey Rob, for those that didn't hear the show, he's now the head distiller of Metallica. I think I made mention of that. He now runs the whiskey. It's called Blackened, and you can find it. It's Metallica's brand, and his final 2 interviews before he got accepted on as head distiller were with James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. And they decided they liked his work, so now he's on. He's going to travel a lot with the band and help promote the whiskey wherever they go. And I think he told me his first shoot is going to be in Belgium, or Berlin, one of the two. It's just crazy. Whiskey Rob is like this big rock star in the whiskey world now, even bigger than he was. So anyway, we'll continue to do that, but let me know through social media who else you want to hear, and we'll continue to try to work on that. To give you some sports nuggets that I haven't had a chance to talk too much about, maybe you've heard a couple of these on the air. Good reviews. So my inside moles, telling me that the Broncos players are loving the coaching staff. Now, we always hear that, right? It's a new coaching staff. It's kind of the cliche thing to say. But let me just say, some of the observers who are sort of the harder ones to convince really think Vic Fangio's got his act together, has a plan. Look, he's just an old school 30-year ball coach, and he knows what he's doing. He's got a reason for everything. He's got a system for things. He's got there's a method to his madness, and I guess he's no BS. And I was told that everybody's hearing it. Every player on the team is getting told when it's good enough or not. So I just kind of get the feeling, reading between the lines of being told this stuff, that wasn't always what was going on under Vance. And I think as much as I think Vance Joseph does have a chance to possibly be good enough, because guys did like him. Know that. Guys did like him, but I don't think they respected him, and the two aren't one and the same. Frankly, it's better that you respect a guy than you like him, because there's less of a chance you try to take advantage of him. And I think we know that goes for all walks of life. And I think the Broncos are done taking advantage of folks. And I think specifically on defense, where you have the bigger brains, if you will, as far as knowing what they want to do and knowing that they were an elite unit at once upon a time, I think Vic Fangio has their attention and, more importantly, their trust as to what he's trying to do. And so that's one of the reasons why I think, with a couple of things going their way, I think the Broncos can get back to maybe not all the way to the 2015 level, but this is a defense you're not going to want to deal with them anymore. And I think Fangio is going to have a great plan and a great idea on what to do with the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs aren't going to be so. Now they've got some great playmakers over there, and we'll see what happens with the Tyreek Hill thing. You know me, I don't know how Tyreek Hill, with all this going around, I don't know how he doesn't miss a half season. One of the guys on 92.5 is Ryan Harris. He says the Players Association is going to stand up for that guy, so we'll see. So I hope the NFL levels levy some appropriate punishment for Tyreek Hill and the disgusting tapes that we've heard and all that other stuff. But whatever. You know what? We'll see what happens. You got to factor him in right now until you know he's not going to be there. So Chiefs are still going to be a problem, but I think from what I gather, I think the players will trust with whatever Fangio comes up with. I don't think you're going to see so much of the corners trying to figure out what they're running with the safeties. I don't think the pass rush is going to be wondering what the secondary was doing, so on and so forth. So I think automatically you're going to see more defensive harmony out of there. I think the stuff about Von Miller doing the kickboxing training is very good. We were talking about it on the show today. Von Miller admitting he didn't know how to breathe through contact. He kind of was holding his breath, and he's learning through this MMA/kickboxing coach how to breathe properly as you deliver contact. I took these MMA classes that they talk about. I took some kickboxing classes getting ready to go up to the Vail Shootout. I was doing the old man division, and it was a couple years ago, and I took these classes and loved them, frankly. If the gym had not closed that I was going to, I would have kept going to it. I wish more people would find out about it because you get to punch the bag. It's a great workout. I would sweat buckets, really transformed my body in 6 weeks, really got my cardio up and better, but it was fun. It wasn't the usual gym cycle. I hate running. I hate ellipticals, so I will always vouch for what the kickboxing classes can do for you. And hearing that Derek Wolfe and Von Miller in particular are combining not only the kickboxing/MMA workouts with football drills, I just think that's outstanding. And so we'll see if Derek Wolfe's hands don't improve. The reason why I endorse these is not only do I think it's a great way of getting your cardio, but I also know that from talking to the offensive and defensive linemen that I know, it's a hand fight in there. In the trenches, it's about a hand fight. Offensive linemen are trying to get their hands on you. They're trying to get your hands on your inside breastplates and guide you where they want to go. I know that from my buddy Mark Schlereth and from talking to Ryan Harris and guys like that. For defensive linemen, especially the young defensive linemen, it's about learning how to keep their hands off you so you can do what you did in college, which is dominate. Now, most of the college defensive linemen and pass rushers, all they have to do is have a nice punch move or whatever to dominate an offensive lineman in front of them. Well, once you get to the pros, those full-grown men with their man strength already come in. They're not going to let you shoo their hands away or run around them as fast, and you're not going to dominate them the way most of your classic defensive linemen, and really it's this way for any college star, they're dominating whoever's in front of them skill-wise. They only face a couple times a year somebody of the same competition level. Obviously, in the NFL, you're going against somebody who has some idea what to do against most guys in the league. Now, nobody really has the true elixir for Von Miller except for maybe Schwartz, the tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs. But for the most part, you're talking about guys that they're going to be able to counter you somehow. And so the hand fighting is a big deal. I hope some of the young guys figure out what Vaughn and Derek are doing, and they go and they join him in those workouts. So anyway, it just sounds like it was a really good offseason. I think order has been restored to that Bronco locker room. Just again, this is what I'm hearing. Now, this could all mean nothing by the time we get to the regular season, but I'm telling you, between Munchak and Fangio, and you've got Ed Donatel, you've got a lot of guys that not only come in with a plan but are used to working together. And Jeff Legwold said it on our show Friday. You don't have, by the way, don't think that Mike Munchak is just teaching offensive line. He's going to coordinate the whole run game, as Jeff Legwold understands it, or at least that's what he's kind of picked up. It sounds like he's going to have a heavy hand in the run game. This is going to be a lot of what Alex Gibbs did and brought to the Broncos when he showed up to be with Mike Shanahan back in the 90s. And I think you've got a new version of that, maybe a kinder version of that, where you've got the former player in Munchak that just doesn't put up with a lot. And I've heard a lot of good things about how Garrett Bowles has been front and center paying attention and not talking back to the Hall of Famer. So, Garrett, I don't know that he talked back to the guys, but he sort of have a tendency to walk away from the coaching. And I haven't heard too many reports of that going on. So, and maybe what it is, in fairness to Garrett, Garrett Bowles I'm talking about, and really for guys along the offensive line period, I know for a fact, guys would tell me in the past, they just wanted a former player to break it down in forms of what they did and how they did it and give it to me from a player's perspective. Because guess what? One certain technique does not work for everybody. It's never been that way. It's never going to be that way. Guys need you to help them figure out how they can take what they have and make it work. How when what they've prided themselves on in a lot of cases isn't working anymore. Mark Schlereth, I always thought would make a good offensive line coach because Stink has had so many injuries. He's had to adjust what he was doing a lot of times. He just had to figure it out. He's just had to street fight a lot of the times. You need a guy like that just kind of figured out, okay, I'm broke. I'm hurt. I can't drop the same way. My sets aren't the same way. But here's how I'm going to figure it out. Here's how I'm going to get over it. Here's some techniques I've seen. Here's some other guys that help me figure out something else. Mark came from the Hogs and so on and so forth. So my point being with Mike Munchak there and Chris Cooper, two guys that have played the position, two guys that have had to figure it out. It is going to be, I think, an improved group just simply because they're getting guys instead of being, with all due respect to Rick Dennison, and I love a lot of what he's done in Denver, and he's been a part of a lot of success here. So I'm not knocking that. But Rick Dennison was a linebacker. He was a linebacker who learned these things from Alex Gibbs. Now, good for him for going to school on it. Good for him for becoming, respected as an offensive line coach. But I'm telling you, Denver having two former players that can break down what you do and what can be so helpful is going to be, in my mind, absolutely huge for them and should be a huge factor why they're so much more successful, which I do believe they'll be more successful than they've been the last couple years. Then you got to get the running backs buying in, which I think they will. If Denver can get the proper run game going, there's no reason in my mind why Joe Flacco can't be an upgrade for you. Let's be honest about it. If you had a better run game with Trevor Siemian and with even Case Keenum, and I know there's bitterness of both guys because neither really ended up with the success that you wanted, but a better run game and a commitment to the run game. And it wasn't just on the quarterbacks and the players out there. Unfortunately, Mike McCoy and Bill Musgrave were not committed to the run game. They weren't. And I believe Rich Scangarello with Munchak, he's going to be committed to the run game. Now, we'll see. Maybe he won't be. Maybe he'll fall in love with his passing plays the way that many offensive coordinators nowadays do. And I've often heard the term that you don't get hired as a head coach in the NFL because you coordinate good running game. It's got to be something about how you're somehow credited with some new wrinkle in the passing game that's tearing teams up and blah, blah, blah. Bottom line is, if you stay committed to the run game, I think this is going to be a very successful offense and one that Joe Flacco can run highly effectively like he did in Baltimore, where not only did you run the offense effectively, maybe you wore the other defense down so you could start getting those long plays, but you also kept the defense out of bad spots, which is what they did in 2015. Hopefully you can have a little more scoring efficiency, but if nothing else, it's complementary football. Talk about it all the time, right? Complementary football. Well, the Broncos need to play it if the defense does return somewhat to the level of the realm of what it was. Even in 2016, they were a pretty good defense. They just eventually, I think, broke knowing that the offense couldn't do anything. So what's really the point? So I'm excited to see what this brings. I'm excited for them to get back. Cross your fingers. They're on their summer break, but they come back first. They come back early. And I've become very excited and intrigued to see what Fangio can do with this group. I still don't know if I have a higher hope than 10 wins just because you're in a very tough division, and it's going to still be some new for a lot of people. There still has to be some proof to me for the receiver group. But right now, 10 wins I think is a doable goal, and hopefully maybe you surprise a couple teams early on in the process in that first 8 weeks that and I don't have the schedule in front of me, but maybe somewhere in there you get a surprise win or two, and then all of a sudden 11 or 12 comes into the conversation. But I do believe they can be a playoff team, and I am excited to see what they can bring. As far as the Rockies go, obviously talking some Rockies now. Going to be curious to see what happens with this team. A little scared about the pitching. Peter Lambert's been pretty good. Hoping they can get their thing kind of righted and get things back on track. But we'll be talking some Rockies as we go along. They got a nice win as I record this on a Monday night. They beat the Cubs. Peter Lambert's about to make his second start, so some of you will be digesting this Tuesday. Some of you may be taking it in Wednesday, and we'll know what happened in that second start. A pitching friend of mine who's just like a pitching geek, off the charts reviews for what Peter Lambert has done. Spin rate should play well at Coors Field. Has this plus, I believe it was the plus change, which means it's still it looks like it's rising. Guys can't tell by the way he throws it. He's got 3 pitches all from the same arm slot. I guess that's important because batters were having a tough time guessing what pitch was coming. Fastball, changeup, curve from his arm slot position. So he's not giving things away. He keeps him guessing, and the changeup is really his deadly pitch. He's not afraid to throw it for a strikeout, which is key, I've been told. The spin rate's good. It looks like it's rising. I've just heard a lot of cool things. And I guess he's used to pitching in the PCL, which the Albuquerque Isotopes play in, the Pacific Coast League. Got a lot of bandboxes, as I was told, small stadiums, a lot of offense in that league. So hopefully Lambert does some nice things. Hopefully Freeland gets his mind right, and we can get the Rockies straightened out a bit. But, man, the Dodgers just continue to dominate everybody in the division. They're 11 games up. I don't even know that I can convince myself a run at the division is possible. And sooner or later, that's what I think the Rocks need to do. You got to start winning divisions and quit having this one-game playoff that blows a pitcher as you try to start a wild card series. So, anyway, got to get the pitching right, though. I'm not sure it's totally right. Wade Davis looked good against the Cubs on Monday night. Hopefully that continues. That's a start, and we'll just take it from there. All right, I'm going to sign off on this edition. We're going to try to get Jason Hirsch on soon. I'm really hoping that I can get him in there to do a little bit for my After Hours podcast here. And I want to, again, thank you all. Reiterate that one more time. Please send me who you want to hear from. I'll try to go out there and get them. Hopefully it's some of the past guests, even if it's just Mark and Jason. I'm going to try to keep that regularly. But other people you'd love to hear stories from. Let me know who that is, and I'm going to try to get it done for you. But for now, I'll sign off. Hopefully we'll get another one to you next week. And as I smooth out my schedule with both teaching and radio shows Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'll try to figure out where the podcast fits in, and this will get back to being regular. But again, thank you all. Love you all. Take care. We'll talk next week.